Welcome to the Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Fit, the all-in-one AI-powered corporate wellness platform developed by Vantage Circle.
Women's health. As much as we see the growth in females across all job industries, it will be accurate to say that there is still a long way to go. I mean, more than 50% of women in the US are in the labor force, and even then, specific health provisions for women do not adequately exist. Women employees face a lot of workplace challenges, especially those relating to health. And as they spend most of their time at the office, their health issues must be given importance. And female employees are more prone to work-related carpal tunnel syndrome cases, respiratory diseases, anxiety, stress, and whatnot. So, let us discuss more on this topic in today's episode of Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. Today we have with us Michelle Smith. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you for having me.
We are so glad to have you here. So, Michelle, tell us something about yourself, your experience, what you like to do, and where you work.
Well, that's a weighted question, but I'll keep it short and sweet. I left 20 plus years in healthcare to invest in better quality of life in the personal fitness and wellness space. About a year and a half ago, I left the job because I felt like women, men as well, but women need to have someone that's invested in a quality of life versus a hamster wheel that I think so many of us find ourselves in. And when you love what you do versus just slipping through the day, it totally changes your perspective of what bringing service to someone means. And so now, even though I get up ridiculously early, you're doing it because you love it, and it's because it's impacting people's lives versus just trying to collect a paycheck. And I think that brings freedom for a lot of people, and it also changes the perspective sometimes when I say I left a job for a passion. And I think in today's society, that's very hard to wrap your head around. And when I said I'm going to leave my job to help and to basically give people a workout every day, I'm pretty sure my husband thought I had lost my mind. But it is very different perspective, and I love it. I wish I would have done it sooner, but God's path and God's timing takes precedence. And I don't think I would change anything other than I would have just wished I would have done it sooner.
Exactly. Like, I also believe that following the passion is sometimes a hard thing to do, but I believe it is the right thing to do.
Yes, very much so. And sometimes you just have to do it afraid. And I don't know about most of the population that's listening to this, but I learn best when I fail forward, because if I get into my own head and try to read everything and try to know everything, you never step out and you never get into what you're truly going to do. You're always constantly trying to figure out what else you need to know, And when you just get out and do it afraid and do it because you want to, and you find out what works and how to make it work, because I don't care what manual you read, what book you read, when it comes to real life, you have to be able to adapt, because life is not cookie cutter for anyone.
Exactly. And especially as we'll talk about women today. So life is not so easy for women. Like, even though we believe in equality, but I feel there's a long way to go, right?
I'll second that. Yes.
Okay. So as we talk about women's health, tell us some of the women's health issues in the current world.
Well, if you're looking from what we always see reported on, right? It's always that cancer and heart disease and stroke. But what I see that is not always talked about, and I'm not saying it's top of mind, it's just something that is prevalent every day, is dietary issues and mental health in a different light than what the news and social media say. And when I say mental health, I mean in the aspect of the mental perception of what healthy is versus what social media shows everyone. right? Just like the new Victoria's Secret song, it's coming from a man. It's a man's perception of what is sexy versus what is healthy. That mental perception of we have to be able to get it all done, right? Women are typically multitaskers because we're being the mom, the wife, and an income receptor. And that takes a toll on our mental health and our physical health and our digestive health. And so those are 3 of the top things that I see and deal with every day, whether it's my online clients or my in-person clients or my wellness clients, right? And when we become mentally stronger, we also become physically stronger. But that also starts in our gut system, which is the core of our body. We always want to strengthen the core, and the gut system is part of that. And so our digestive health has went to the wayside as pharmaceutical health takes the lead in our healthcare system.
Like you mentioned, the various issues that women usually go through, health issues, I mean. So do you think there are special health problems faced by working women?
Absolutely. Because not all jobs provide insurance. And if they do, it's a yin and yang of whether or not you can afford it. And again, women as those caregivers will put our health and our needs to the side so that we can take care of others until we're so sick, our problem is so escalated that we do have to put life on hold in order to take care of it. And so, and especially for single moms, those are some hard decisions that they have to make. And so some of the health conditions that women face, depending on how early they are in their job or what the demands are of their job, then they don't feel like they can take off or take that time to take care of some things. And so it absolutely alters what's getting done, the mindset of taking care of themselves and what that picture really, truly looks like.
Yes, exactly. And what about the socio-cultural factors? Do you think they also hamper women's well-being in the workplace?
Yes, because some people are more social than others. And that goes for women, right? Some are more extroverts, some are more introverts. And the crowd that you're around absolutely alters your thought process and how you do things and what becomes a priority. And I don't mean either one's good or bad, and we all have seasons of the crowd that we surround ourselves with. And if you think about mothers, right, you're around the group that you're the kids are in school with or they're in sports with. You have your group that you work with, and then that's going to change as you change jobs or the kids get older or they're out of school or they're not doing sports. So the people that you surround yourself with absolutely impacts your thought process, your physical health. Sometimes it's not good, right? We've all been in those situations where you're like, man, this is so toxic, but yet I'm kind of stuck here. And some of those toxic situations will also contribute to the decline of that mental and physical health.
Even if you surround yourself with positive people, automatically the positivity reaches to you as well, right? So that way you also start feeling positive, and then you also spread positivity. So that is almost like a chain system, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And what you think about, you talk about, and what you dwell on, and the more positive people you can surround yourself with, the more positive you're going to think, the more positive you're going to feel. Not that we don't all have our oh crap days, right? But if you start looking at who you surround yourself with, then you start recognizing kind of what you're talking about, what you're thinking about, what you're dwelling on. Absolutely. And you definitely want to breathe that positivity into the others as well.
Yes. And like I already mentioned, we women are often victims of inequality, especially because of the stigmas and taboos in society. So how do you think those can be resolved?
Well, I don't think they'll ever be resolved. And that's just being realistic. And I don't mean that in a negative aspect, but sometimes some parties can take things to the extreme, which sets us back. And then we have the positive side of things of, as we continue to grow and evolve, as we continue to invest in others, invest in ourselves, and invest in whatever career we're in, and showing that positivity. But we still have roles as mothers and wives. And I think there's always going to be a separation because obviously, men don't give birth. And, there's a different type of role that each plays, and that creates balance. But just because I'm a woman doesn't mean that I can't process certain things, right? And I don't expect to lift the same amount that my husband does. That would be absurd. And I don't expect him to know certain things that I do well. And that creates a balance also. But to assume that I can't do something because I'm a woman is obtuse. And I think the more we look at our strengths and also value each other's strengths, not just point out the weaknesses, will change the atmosphere. And there's going to be those that disagree and agree. And that's okay. That's part of life. You should be able to agree to disagree. But you should never be in a situation where it's a matter of degrading someone else in order to make yourself look better or feel better. And I think that's the society we still live in. And social media plays a huge role in that.
Exactly. And I also believe that if the men around us are more supportive of us, then it becomes an easier place for us to evolve. Like the stigmas and taboos which are created like a long time back. So those can be resolved if all of us come together and try to see from a single point of view, right?
Absolutely. And, and my husband is an electrician, and he has women electricians on the job site. And it doesn't matter if you're male or female, right? There's going to be those who truly work hard. They are very good at their trade. And there are those that are lazy and they are just along for the ride, or whoever's coattail that they came on the job with. So that proves to me right there that my husband's job as an electrician is extremely hard. It's very taxing. It's very physical. And it's very mental, because obviously if you don't wire something right, it's going to blow up or burn up, right? And so that shows me right there that a woman can do that job, physically, mentally capable. And then there are those men and women that are not going to do well. And that goes across the board, and being supportive, but also objective. But I also think that starts in the schools. As kids are looking towards what they are wanting to pursue as adults, a 17, 18-year-old truly doesn't know who they're going to be 10 years from then. But helping them find their strengths and to know their weaknesses, because there's strength in knowing your weaknesses. If you know your weaknesses, then they're not near as big of a stumbling block, but yet you're allowed to strengthen them, to work on them and understand them better. And process that better as you get older and as you move through your different career paths, versus just saying, well, my dad was this, and so that's what I'm going to do. My mom did this, or this is what I was told I was good at, so that's what I'm going to do. Doesn't mean you're going to be great at it. And so I think it goes across the board there for boys and girls, men and women, to understand what their strengths and weaknesses are and encourage those, build those, but yet be able to say, hey, you're really, really good at this, and I know you like this. It's just not your strong point. Doesn't mean tear them down, separate them, and say that's a man's job and that's a woman's job.
Exactly. And education has a big role to play in this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the brain is ever growing. And, if you're not using it, if you're not, to me, a wasted day is if I'm not learning something new. I work with a very eclectic group of men and women that I train. No one is the same. No session is the same. Every day when I do their program of what they're training on, it's different. And you learn something new from past injury, a past mindset, a thought process, all of those things. So if you're not learning something new all the time, you do become very stagnant. You become very complacent. And for most of us, we become very bored. And what happens when we're bored? You're expecting new things out of the same old, or you start tearing down other people. And the old adage, if you're pointing a finger at someone else, you got 3 pointing back at you. And so if you're constantly nitpicking at someone else, maybe it's a strength or a weakness that you find in yourself. And that's real hard to swallow sometimes. But the brain is ever growing, and it's also a very intricate part of what affects our health daily also, I believe.
Absolutely. And when we're talking about workplaces, so can employers help break those stigmas and help build a safer and more secure workplace for their female employees? If yes, then how?
I think so, but it's a matter if they want to. And sometimes you have the good old boys club, and if, in the mindset of a company of, well, this has always worked and that's just how we're going to do it. And if anyone had learned anything out of COVID, it's a matter of being able to pivot when something isn't available, isn't working right. And being very honest in the workplace of the expectations, but also aware of what behaviors are becoming okay and what behaviors they truly want to instill as the mission of the company. And as we see more and more women, obviously over the past multiple years leading that role, I think they still deal with their own battles of getting there and battles of leading in an industry that may have been driven by men. And that's part of history, right? But the arrogance of this is how it's always been done and why change it, compared to the attitude and the mindset of, if we want to continue on and we want to be as strong as we have been the past 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, whatever the case may be, it's looking at who's leading with the better motives, the better mission, and who's setting the atmosphere for the type of employees that we want. Because people are going to follow leadership, whether it's good or bad.
Exactly. And the leaders are who we look up to, right? So if the leaders are supportive enough, then obviously the employees will also feel inspired and will be loyal to the employer and the organization.
Absolutely. People don't leave the company, they leave bad leadership.
Exactly. Now, with so many diseases on the rise in recent days, and also with COVID in the scene, women are more prone to several diseases, both old and new. Some even go undetected. So how do you think we can fix this issue?
Well, that's a loaded question. But my opinion, and of course it's just my opinion, and there's going to be those that agree and those disagree, but a lot of it is getting back to the whole body as it was created to function. We weren't created to be a pharmaceutical mill, and being able to look at what is missing. If someone has multiple problems, obviously, it's not coming right from the source, just because there's always underlying factors. And I think a lot of those go unlooked. I know they go unlooked because there's just hey, we're checking off these boxes and we have research on this, and this, but yet people are still in the hamster wheel of being sick and dying. And the more people are proactive to finding out why, or really looking at, okay, last year I was not having any of these symptoms. So when did it start happening? Right? And what has been different? Maybe it's the overload of stress. Maybe there's been a huge dietary change. And maybe they're getting something that is, it's not that it's wrong, but not everybody's going to, do well with grains, or not everyone's going to, do well with nightshade plants. Things that could be new into their dietary, new in their environment. Maybe they moved and they're allergic to something in their surroundings. There's always underlying things, and we've become very, very quick to pop a pill for that versus looking at what our body is either missing or getting an overload of that might not be well for us. And I see that a lot right now as people are becoming more and more aware of I need to get stronger now if I want to be strong when my kids are finishing school, or I want to be a stronger grandparent. I don't want to be in a walker and in a wheelchair at 60 because I didn't take care of myself. There's a lot of things that we can be doing different, but being very, very aware of our sleep, our mindset, what we're focusing on, and how much good food that we're getting, how much time we're spending outside, how much time we're getting some physical activity, and how much time we're really getting off of our social devices, off of our smart devices, and being tuned into our family versus locked into the negative news and the onslaught of dopamine hits so that we can feel better as we flip through social media. And we've lost the art of connecting with the people that are in the room around us, which is part of that positive mindset when you can actually enjoy your family versus the screen time. And the longer we're on our phones in the evening, especially right up until we go to bed, we have less REMs, and there's study after study, and everyone talks about it in the aspect of get off of your phone, off of your computer, off of social media for the hour before you go to bed. Read, spend some time, so that you can actually relax and your body can get out of that overstimulation.
Exactly. And like taking care of our physical health is one of the most important things all of us have learned, and especially with the pandemic going on, people have been greatly concerned with their health nowadays, right? So even, for example, I also sometimes working out is an important thing, but I also lose my mind, lose my way sometimes, and I just binge watch, stay up all night and follow a very unhealthy routine. But then I realized, I have to start going for exercises, working out and everything. Yes, but the motivation is something very difficult. Like the intrinsic motivation doesn't come that easy, right?
You're right. And here's a thought. And the busier we are, the more important, our time blocks are on our calendar. Even as you're splitting time as a mom and a businesswoman, or whatever. But I tell my clients, I'm blocking off this time, right? This is your appointment. I'm blocking off this time. I'm all in for you. So you show up. And when you're paying money, you're typically not going to, throw that away. But you set that time block and you set that appointment as your workout like you would a meeting with your boss, because you're not going to cancel on your boss. You're not going to no-show there. And so this is your hour. This is your 30 minutes a day to invest in your health. And that's what you have to really look at it as an investment in your health for that physical exercise. But that's also helps reduce the cortisol. It's also a stress reliever, that mindset, and it's an investment versus, I would much rather have someone invest in their health now and getting that personal training and having that wellness versus having to invest in it later when they don't get to enjoy it. And so sometimes you just have to be adamant to set that appointment for yourself, and like an appointment with your boss, you can't cancel. And that's when you show up for yourself, not in a selfish way, but when you show up for yourself, especially in the morning before the day hits, before your brain knows what you're doing, you're going to show up as a better mom, as a better wife, as a better employee, as a better lover. You're clearer when you are able to have that time to invest physically, mentally, emotionally in your body.
And it is often seen, we women are, like you said, like we already mentioned, that we're considered as multitaskers. So amid these busy schedules in both home and office, so women often are very ignorant about their own health, right? Which leads to long-term issues. So do you think there's a way around it?
Well, we would love to say yes, but there are also seasons in our life that there's not. And I mean that, like, a lot of us experienced that during COVID, or you have a sudden loss of income, and that the wife, let's say, but even the husband, but there's a loss of income. And so the wife picks up an extra shift, or an extra, side hustle. And so sometimes you're putting that investment in yourself, you're putting that physical, mental on hold for a season. But that you have to know that it's a season. Maybe there was a recent death of a spouse, or a divorce, or your child is sick. When you're putting it on hold for a season, it's a whole lot easier to get back into that routine when you know that, hey, it's a season. And whether or not the person has that mindset, but I will say this, it's also way more helpful and way more likely that they will be successful when the spouse is supporting them in that. Because you have to make that physical choice to be active and invest in a physical activity for your health. You have to make that choice for you. And I don't mean that in a selfish way, but you have to have your own why that motivates you to do it every day. I want to be a positive role model for my kids. I want to be able to get through, I have this is my job. And I'm going to use my mom, for instance, at 59, she said, okay, you're going to have to help me get stronger, because I want to be able to have my catering job, which is a very physical, demanding job. My catering job past 60, closer to 65, but right now I can barely make it through the day. So at 59, she started working out 3 days a week. And tell me that wasn't hard, right? And her generation and my grandmother's generation, there was no one walking every day. There was no one thinking about, getting healthy and working out a couple times a week, maybe going for a walk, but that's about it, right? Back when it was healthy and popular to smoke in a hospital, so there's that mindset shift, and it can be done at any age. But it took her getting to a season of, hey, I wanted to be able to do this a lot longer, and I don't feel like I have any oomph to get there to do it. And so being very aware of the investment that you want, why you're doing it, the why has to be way bigger. The why has to be way bigger than the number on the scale, or the pant size that you're wanting to get into, or that class reunion or wedding that you're trying to look good for just a day of an event. Your why has to be big, and then being able to be realistic of, hey, this is a season. I'm going to take care of mom right now, and then I'll have time to get back at it. But sometimes that's hard for some people to put in perspective, because life is hard.
Absolutely. What is your opinion on corporate wellness programs? So do you think these programs can help in empowering women and make them focus on their well-being?
Yeah, absolutely. If it's offered, not all offer that, and if it's truly obtainable. And there are a lot of companies that they do want their employees to be healthy. The healthier you are, the less sick days, right? The less loss of time. Not only in production for the company, but also in your own, right? Because not everyone wants your job. And for some, their job, if they're not doing it, no one else is doing it. It just piles up. So the healthier you are, the less sick days, right? So the less overtime there is for others, the less that healthcare costs because you're not using it. So the corporates and companies do want their employees to invest in a wellness program if they offer it. Some offer crap. But when they have a gym there, right, go use it. Use the stairs every day. Get outside and walk instead of sitting on your social media or taking a smoke break. That's going to change your mindset. That's going to change your circulation. It's going to change your digestive system, and you're going to be better off. But the chances of waiting until you get home, you've already got kids, homework, dinner, and anything else that you have to do. So if they're offering a wellness program, especially if there's a gym on site, you're more likely to get it done if you Set your alarm, get up, get out the door, obviously take care of your responsibilities, right? We all have certain things that we do in the morning, but you're getting there 30 minutes earlier, getting a workout in, and then getting ready for work, or hitting the gym or hitting that path that's around the company's site and getting a run or a walk or whatever the case may be, and grab an accountability partner. But you're going to do that before you leave, before you sit in traffic and you're physically and mentally exhausted and ticked off, and then go home and take care of your family. So when companies invest in their employees so that they are healthier, but it is our responsibility as an employee to also take advantage of it and not be like, and just kind of blow it off.
Okay, so with this, we come to the end of today's session. So, Michelle, would you like to share something more with our listeners?
Well, in today's age, I got to say that we are able to connect with people more, and we're able to have more physical activity opportunities. But it's our responsibility to disconnect from the phone and sometimes from work and from the computer to take advantage of that physical activity, but also to communicate more. I love to network and I love to connect, but communication is becoming a lost art because it's just easier to sit behind the email or the text, when in reality we kind of misconstrue maybe what our message is. And the same with our physical activity, right? And there's more gyms, there's more online training, there's more social opportunity to become physically healthy. And sometimes we're just one click away and we've clicked on something else. So from the perspective of leaving corporate healthcare after 20 something years and going into the service aspect of how can I help you reach your goals and fit it in your busy schedule so that you are physically, mentally, socially, spiritually more balanced, so that you show up at your job better and your family better. It has completely changed lives in my small rural area. And I don't say that arrogantly, but in a society where you go to work and you collect a paycheck, we've kind of forgotten the art of being able to step out and really look at what you can do to make a difference. Because never in a million years would I have thought that it would have gotten as big and enjoyable as I had perceived. I've been dreaming really, really big for about 5 years, way outside of what is normal in my area. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just we kind of get in a rut. And if you are looking at, and for me, it was a matter of, I don't want to struggle with my weight my whole life like my mom has. I don't want to be pushed in my 80s. I want to be able to run in my 80s. I want to be a better role model for my daughter of what healthy is. Skinny does not mean healthy. Doesn't mean healthy, but that's kind of the social media link. And that causes a lot of mental health issues for especially our young girls. Boys deal with it too. They're bullied just as well. But social media bullies our girls. They're young girls, young adults, in the aspect of this is what you're supposed to look like. When that they forget to tell them that, hey, I'm not eating, I feel like crap, and I got someone else over here cooking for me and telling me what to do. That's not real life. And so being able to juggle how to eat, how our body feels, and how we feel through that, I work with women from 25 to 69, and they all deal with the same imbalances and insecurities, and how am I going to be stronger for this leg of my journey compared to where I was. And sometimes we just have to take a deep look at who we want to be and how we want to show up for the next 10 years versus the last 10 years and what you want to take time out. But I know very well that everybody has 30 minutes a day that they could be doing something physically and mentally healthier for themselves. And I encourage them to take that time, and if they are struggling with what to do, maybe they find a personal trainer in their area, or they can find me online. But being able to invest in their health now versus paying for it later will pay off bigger than they can imagine.
Yes. Thanks for the suggestion, Michelle. We're so glad to have you here, and thank you for all the beautiful insights. I have learned a lot, and I hope our listeners as well. I hope you had a great time as well. Thank you so much for giving us your time and joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.